we want to discuss Alex had a question about variable deallocation and fragmentation. We've got some questions about the status of the web interface, and then if we have some time at the end, we wanted to chat about some of the bone script implementation of Botspeak, some issues that Chris is having getting some of that stuff running reliably.
Big novice at Linux.
Yeah, sure. Pardon?
Thanks for joining, Deepak.
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear
So
me?
Alex, you want to go on with your question?
Yeah, sure. So, well, just to make sure I have the idea correct. So if you create a variable, with a set command outside of a script, so as that a single instruction, that's then that variable exists basically until you reset the PRU. Whereas if you create variables inside of a script, when you stop that script, they should probably get destroyed. Am I thinking about that right? Okay. So in that case, since there's only 200 and is it 240? Is that right? Maximum variables, Deepak?
Yeah, 240.
Yeah. Then fragmentation could certainly become an issue, though it's not. I mean, it's easy to handle with just integers, but the arrays complicate it with the current compiler scheme because the interpreter itself on the PRU has absolutely no notion of arrays. It just gets addresses. Oh no, sorry, that doesn't work because you need to be able to index by a variable. So long story short, I don't see a way to do it without implementing like linked lists.
Why can't we just have a static allocation of variables with just integer-based indexing so that there's not...
Yeah, I mean, the issue then comes in, so if you, say you run a script that has an array of 100 elements in it, and then you stop that script, you want to free up those 100 memory slots. But if, before you free those, you happen to have created 10 more, if you put that stretch of 100 back in the, in the free memory slot pool, and then try to allocate an array of 101, you then don't have, you can't use that slot of 100 because you need one more and there's another variable right after it without doing some sort of, linking.
Would arrays be coming out of the same memory pool as the standard variables?
Yes.
That was my thing.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's, and maybe the answer is just to not worry about it at all, and say, I don't know if that would become an issue with the normal usage.
So any kind of memory management can be done through the Python interface, so I don't think that should pose too much of a problem in terms of how complicated it will get. So deallocation isn't a big deal. I can add another delete instruction, so that's very much possible. It probably will take a day.
Right, but then because you can index an array by a variable, so you could say, array X, that means that because the compiler is then turning that into just the absolute address, well, sorry, it's not in that case. It has to give the base address and then the offset. So I guess it has to turn that into a couple instructions. Yeah.
But the only issue with deallocation, immediate deallocation, is if you're doing data logging or something like that, where you're grabbing a bunch of numbers and then you want to pull them back later. It's better to deallocate at the time that you upload the next script. Right? If I want to take a 100 temperature measurement or 100 analog whatever measurements, I want to then be able to ask for those measurements and read back that array after the script is completed.
Yeah. Huh.
So as of now, there is a I'm planning of some kind of a clear all or reset interpreter instruction, which will make sure that all the variables are freed. So in case, say you're running a script to do task A and you want to use it for some other unrelated task B, then it'll automatically deallocate all the variables and make it seem as if nothing has been done till now. All the pins will be reset to 0, etc. So
So
that's one.
do you still only do scripts, or is there a way to do direct commands as well?
Yeah, there is an interface for direct commands. While the script is running, you can fetch variables, you can set variables, etc. So if a
Nice.
script is running, yeah,
And then after the script is finished running, I can still query variable values.
yeah, you can query variable values, you can reset them, run the script again, etc.
Right. Yeah. So I would suggest your approach is better, that you have either a command or it's implicit in the next time you download a script that does the complete wipe. So that way you can do, with the direct commands, you can query what your array values are.
I don't think a complete wipe should be automatic, because if you had before script A created a variable that's then essentially like a global variable, and then you stop script A and run script B, that shouldn't destroy that thing that existed before script A, I don't think.
It's not
Well,
automatic, it's
this I,
explicit.
Right.
yeah, I think the idea of a free command seems like the most friendly approach for in all of our views, right? Just have a free. When you run free, it frees everything.
Right. Now, how do you do the error checking when you exceed the memory allocation? So if I allocate a memory of 1,000 points, what error do I get back?
So as of now, it just returns a warning saying the allocation has failed. But in future, I'm thinking of having my own different exceptions, and each you could mess your code up in various ways. So it gives you a decent warning saying either it's a syntax error or it's a semantic error, etc. So that's the plan. As of now, I haven't implemented custom exception handling. But all it does is returns the 0 as the compiled value, and it's basically not executed. So in case it
And what
figures out that you're
and what do you do if I ask for an array element that doesn't exist?
the same thing. It gives back a warning saying that the variable is not found. So
No, I think you mean an index past the length of an array.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said you were having trouble with that, right, Deepak? Doing length
yeah,
checks.
1 second. Let's see. There were a couple of problems. 1 sec.
Yeah, I mean that
Where did I
adds the
keep that?
complication of having to send errors
Yeah.
back from the PRU to user space program.
Yeah. Well, as of now, what I'm doing is I can just keep a return value of -1 or something of that sort. Yeah, but there. Okay, I can't find the place where I wrote it down, but it added a lot of problems on the both the user space side and the PRU side. So I was wondering whether the extra amount of code is worth all the effort.
Well, I think most of that code can be abstracted away in the tokenizer. It can create basically the extra commands of or the extra instructions of pulling out that length, doing the check, just with regular Botspeak instructions.
Yeah. So it'll work for array of x where x is a constant, but if x is a variable, then it has to be done on runtime on the PRU.
Yeah.
And once again, while during declaration, my array declaration looks something like this. I'll just put it up in the chat box. Yeah, this will declare
It's better if you can
ARR.
share. That doesn't get recorded, but
Okay, it's basically set ARR empty brackets comma 5. So it'll create an array called ARR whose length is 5. So that's how it works now. Um, what this does is it's interpreted only on the user space side. So you really don't have to bother telling the PRU about it, because all the bytecode encoding is done on the user space side anyway. So only the Python libraries have to know about this right now. So there isn't exactly an other opcode for this. Whereas if I introduce it now, I'll have to add another 64-bit opcode, because instead of 5, it can be a variable, or it could be an array variable. And also this has to once again be interpreted on the PRU side, and it's getting bulky already. So I was wondering whether it's
Um,
worth all that effort.
I don't see any problem with limiting the creation of arrays to constant values.
I
Um,
agree.
But back to length checking for a minute. Here's a scenario you should think about: is if you say you create two variables, right? You have variable x, which is 240. You set to 240, and then you create an array of 239, and then you index that array with that variable. You're then one past your actual, your variable memory. You're at address 241, which is then, that's a problem. That's a memory overflow. So I think that you really do need to implement the length check at
Fine.
runtime on the
I
PRU.
Yeah, that's fine as far as we limit the set instruction to either constant or a variable, because if I make it an array variable, it's going to add a lot of it's going to make it complicated. So I want this second operator to either be a constant or a variable.
I would vote
Is
constant
that
for round
fine?
one.
Okay. So if I can make it a constant, I can as well make it a variable. That's not a big deal. But if I have to make it array variables, then that'll be a 64-bit instruction. Then again, decoding it is also going to take a lot of logic. So if Chris is fine with set ARR of 5 and set ARR of var x, then yeah, that can be done.
I'd rather have that limitation, but then have length checking so you don't get overflows.
Yeah, sure. Fine, I'll note that down. I'll do that.
Or at least, on the PRU catch the actual memory overflow of, a variable address past 240. At the very least, just catch that one overflow.
Yeah. No, I can do this set ARR comma constant or variable. So that isn't really a problem. Even the overhead is less, because if I had to make it constant variable or array variable, then the logic on the PRU side was also going to get heavy. Whereas this seems to be fine to me, because it's a 32-bit instruction, and only have to check whether it's a constant or a variable. So that's fine.
So where's the web interface stand? When can I start playing?
So as of now, I have a simple terminal interface. The web interface, I thought I'll just whip it up quickly once I'm done with a couple more libraries, because right now I'm not done with adding all the language features. So I was planning to start next week.
So August 4th, I'll be giving a presentation at National Instruments on a lot of this stuff, and it would be really cool if I could show them some of your stuff. So whatever you have before the 2nd, email it to me, and I will try and be able to demonstrate it.
Yeah, sure. We should have something by 2nd. I was planning on doing the PWM, digital in, and analog in by that time, but I guess I can drop one of those libraries and whip up a quick web interface and continue with the libraries later.
That'd be great, because I just want to show them the idea, the concept. So, I mean, all I need to do is turn a light on and off or something.
Yeah, sure.
Is it possible to access the onboard LEDs with this?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, sure.
doesn't that require talking or controlling the GPIO modules, not just the PRU GPIO?
Yes.
Pardon?
Right. So weren't you? Yeah. Last I heard. I thought you weren't going to implement that.
So the global pins, yeah,
Yeah.
as of now I'm handling the PRU pins. So but then again I realized that the latency it's going to be a bit slower, right? If I try to access through the ARM GPIO, but it's still going to be a bit faster than how fast my interpreter is running right now. So I thought I may as well add that feature.
Yeah.
So because as of now I can control 15 digital outputs, whereas the maximum that can be controlled is 256 digital outs. So GPIOs. So so I think that should be fine.
Well, but is there going to be a way to program the LED by this August 2nd timeframe? You said that it's possible to program an LED. That requires programming the standard GPIOs. And there's also a headache because the kernel actually allocates it ahead of time, so you need to actually manage some deallocation in order to reallocate it for the
Well,
PRUs.
you should at least.
I remember the website. I was able to control all the pins via Bone script. The BeagleBoard website, the demo.
Yeah,
JC.
that's doing everything from Linux.
Okay, so how complicated would it be to port the same concept from there to here?
Fairly complex. It's not so trivial because you have to access the registers hard in the PRU, so you actually have to do physical register accesses where BoneScript is just doing accesses through the Linux abstractions. So you have to solve that piece.
Well, actually, the register part is pretty straightforward. I would say that the complicated part is keeping the kernel happy.
Yeah, the more complicated part is making the kernel happy.
Yeah, it's never happy. Yeah, I have a little GPIO driver you could use that I wrote for the PRU that controls all the GPIO pins that way, but it does not talk to the kernel.
Well, do you do something to keep the kernel from talking to the LEDs?
Well, I guess it wouldn't necessarily work with the LEDs. Well, no, I guess I could export them. But what I do is I just use I use a little Python script using PyBBIO to mux the pins and maintain their state, and then run
but
script.
Don't you export the pins through PyBBIO anyway? So it's basically exporting.
Yeah, and then I can maintain the state once the PyBBIO script exits. So then I run the PRU script, and So if you're okay with requiring the user to do that step, which I don't think is terrible, then
no, can't we just write a script to when you want to INS mod my module? Can't you just export the pins along with that, like trigger the Python script or
I think when you do a set, potentially, you can do something either with set mode or some other indication. I think to get the Python to do the allocation for you, I think that would be fairly clean and more dynamic than trying to set a particular device tree that would be like a static allocation of all the GPIOs at one time. I think having it dynamically allocated through your Python script is probably the right way to go. But you've got to figure out a way, like with the LEDs, it's trickier because those are. I'm not sure that you can what mode you'd put the LEDs into. You can put them into a GPIO mode, but that's still kernel allocated.
Are they?
No, but the kernel gives an export function, right? Because from PyBBIO I was able to mux it and use it successfully. So
yeah, I don't even remember
if I export.
I think you can export those, the LEDs.
Yeah, because when I first tried out Alexander's code about a couple of months back, that's how I worked with it. I started blinking the onboard LEDs first. I guess one of them didn't blink, but The other three did.
They work better now.
That
Cool.
exporting, that's just allocating them as GPIOs, or is it taking them away
No.
from the kernel?
Yeah, that's telling the kernel driver that these are now under user space control.
Okay, but it's sending it under user space control. It's still
Yeah.
there's nothing saying a user space app can't come in and overwrite your settings and
Right.
get the hardware state confused, right?
Well,
Doesn't it require root access?
that's up to the cape manager. You know, the actual like hardware, or well, if you mean just setting it as high or low, then yeah, there's nothing to keep another user space program from doing that.
But doesn't exporting initially require root privileges?
Yeah, most of this stuff requires root privileges, the I/O stuff.
So once exported, any app can, well, use the GPIOs, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about permissions.
So I'm guessing in this case, once we say it's exported, that's basically telling the kernel to say we are playing with it now. So I don't think controlling it from the PRU would cause much trouble.
Yeah, no, it won't. The kernel basically doesn't touch it at all once it's exported, so you're definitely safe with the PRU in that sense. I think that would be enough, yeah. But you know, you also need to load an overlay to set up the pin mux and everything. So yeah, that can all be done. The Python.
So can't I add that pin mux in my own cape, my own overlay, as a part of my overlay?
It might be better to do it dynamically for each pin, because if you're, you know, especially if you want this to be able to work alongside like other, you know, like BoneScript or PyBBIO, you don't want to mux every single pin.
So I can use PyBBIO now comfortably for my application.
Yeah, you could.
Cool.
It seems reasonable to me that you could make use of PyBBIO as long as you're doing the Python code. No reason to rewrite that stuff.
Yeah, I think Alexander already has an example of the PRU using PyBBIO, so I'll just borrow his code from the PRU, his PRU rep.
Yeah, it's super simple.
Over time, though, I tell you, the desire is to switch to the
Universal Cape.
The helpers. I mean, have you seen the Cape Universal? Have you seen the Cape Universal helpers?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's it's the same idea behind the scenes in PyBBIO. I load an overlay that has the different mux settings and write the same, you know, do the same sort of thing. So yeah, it'll be easy to adapt eventually. It should be transparent or unnoticed.
All right.
So Jason, Alexander, Chris, could we just have some sort of a timeline for this week and the next, so that I'll get my priorities right? Because as of now, I was keeping my web app for sometime the first week of August, but I guess I'll have to start much earlier now. And so that would mean,
Well, Chris, would a like command line thing work for you? Well, just like a little Botspeak shell.
Yeah. So if you can give me good instructions, I can do it off a command line. I just need to write LabVIEW wrappers for it. So.
Yeah. So that would be an option.
So Deepak, can you just provide commands, you know, simple instructions for the command interface to start with?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. I was planning to do that anyway by this Wednesday. So by this Wednesday, I wanted to release like an alpha, a beta version which Chris can test. It's a terminal interface. I would have digital in, digital out, scripts, jumps, etc. Setting arrays. Basically, the language framework. So I thought once that's fine, I can just start working with PWM, analog in, etc. And Chris, I was thinking of one other interface, like wherein you can stream data to the Linux side. So if I want to quickly sample analog data or say digital data, I should be able to sample it and write it out to some buffers, which can then be read out by the Linux side like a serial port.
Interesting idea.
So rather than getting say get variable every time, for example, your Botspeak script goes there and fetches the analog data, and on the user side you keep interrupting with get variable and get the samples. Instead of that, I thought you can just dump it onto a buffer and basically give it a nice serial port like interface and just stream the data in the sensor data.
So, I mean, what if you just did a new command called play, and you'd say you'd want to play DIO 13 for 10 seconds, and then it would just, well, you want to tell it a delta T as well, wouldn't you? If you wanted to set it up and just start sending you that stuff over, you're saying.
Yeah. Um, well, to tell Jason, it's going to be similar to what another student called Abhishek is working on. Though it's going to be a much more simplistic version. I just want to fetch some data and write it to a data stream rather than the user fetching the variables every now and then in between, as in some kind of a data stream where I can just stream the values
You're going to have to pass three things, though. You're going to
back
have to
to the.
pass what channel is actually giving the data. You're going to have to pass the time between data points, and you're going to have to pass the length of the total sample, right?
Yeah, some sort of sampling rate, and just pass it back to. Or my idea was this: you can go with, say, you have analog in channel one, and you want to sample it every 1 millisecond. So what you can do is write a simple script to the port is called is referenced by an array port. So and you want to send it to port 0. The data from analog in 1. So all I do is get port 0 comma analog AI of 1. So it fetches the value and puts it to port 1. Then you wait for 1 second and you jump back uh, to get the next analog value.
Yeah.
So instead of getting it to a variable, you push it to a stream. So any user space application can quickly query it from the stream rather than writing another Botspeak script to query it from the PRU. Because initially, what we are doing right now is, as and when the script is executing, when you want some value, you use the get instruction, send an individual command, and get a return value. Right?
Right. So what you're asking is you want to.
Yeah. So
A little bit difficult because you're going to need to set up on the other side then something that continually watches for new things coming through.
yeah, it'll require a serial sort of driver interface. So it's kind of like an extended goal. If I find time, I'd really love to do something like that. But it's just an idea. So you can have ports, because normally how you all your Botspeak interpreters are on the same CPU, or rather it's either on the Raspberry Pi, or basically there aren't two processors involved. Whereas here I have a ARM processor and I have a, well, the PRU unit. So this would be some kind of neat interface to just stream data in and out between the ARM, the Linux side, and the Linux user space and the PRU side.
It's like a second serial channel, though. I mean, from a host developer standpoint, right? It's leveraging it's creating a separate channel, right? So you have one interactive channel and one data streaming channel.
Yeah, one channel for the code, which is a shared memory area where which the API has already been developed for. So I developed this. What I'm using right now for the code is not exactly like a serial port stream. It the API internally launches it into shared memory and gives a down call to the to the PRU saying that, okay, the
Yeah,
shared
I
memory is
think
now
I
ready, you
think
can
we all
start
know that
running?
already. I think it's just that from a usage standpoint, it looks and feels like a serial stream, right? 'Cause that's
Yeah, yeah. From the usage standpoint, it looks like a serial stream. So this is for the Botspeak instructions, whereas now I want to do one for the data stream. One is the instruction stream. I want another data stream, which actually is the sort of serial port, because a lot of things are much more simpler in when you're handling data and you handle it in the kernel, because scripts are launched one at a time, and you don't have huge scripts being launched every other second, whereas data has uh, the inflow is quite high, so we can actually have some sort of buffer management and things to just take care of it in the kernel and just expose the serial port sort of interface, wherein once again and the reading from the serial port can be integrated into PRU Speak API, so everything is accessible in Python to Python developers, or anyone who wants to develop over the standard PRU Speak interface.
I'm not 100% convinced it's worth the complexity and code size that adds.
So guys, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take off. My next meeting just arrived. But if I can have one quick request, so I think that, Deepak, that's an interesting idea. Let me ponder it some. Just like you can send
Okay.
PWM out, you're saying you'd love to be able to send messaging out. And it
Yeah,
could be a serial line, or it could be whatever the person defines. Um,
yeah.
my one question on, so I'm having a bit of a problem just simply getting stuff installed and updated and everything else, mostly because I'm pretty novice at Linux. So how
Okay.
difficult would it be, Jason, to have on your really cool web page, the standard beaglebone.local page, to have a button, something at the top that says your current versions of everything are. This is your version of Node.js. This is your version of what is it, NPM or whatever. This is your version of all these different things, and then it at the same time goes out and says these are the most recent versions that you can have, and then click on this button to update so that you're at the latest version of everything.
that's probably that's probably a couple hours of work. I can getting that installed in the first place is also part of the headache, right? So if it because if it's on the beaglebone.local, then it has to already be there. I mean, I can provide some third-party informational pages to give it to you, but if you want it to be there in the built-in, right, then you've got to do the install. So let me go ahead. So I understand the problem. Let me go ahead and
Ponder it.
and yeah, ponder it and work on a solution. Okay.
Yeah, because my thinking is if I have 30 students using this, there's no way I'm going to get all of them to log in as root, to get NPM working every time, to understand what the errors are that I send you periodically. Which just make it really easier if it has a sort of an app store type environment where I can just say you update, and if it doesn't work, we do a reflash of the whole thing.
Yeah, sorry. I'll get that in there because we're working on doing an updated release, and I'll get that in there.
Cool. Sorry, I got to run, guys. Are we on then for next week at this time?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be in California, so I'll try and wake up this early then. All right. Thanks. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye, Chris.
I think a good, just one last note about that streaming. A good intermediary step to see if that functionality is really a big benefit would be to just allow get array without an index to get an entire array as like a list in Python.
So if you're worrying about how complicated it will be on the PRU side, it's probably negligible. All it has to do is write on a particular memory location buffer. So it isn't going to be too complicated there. Where it's going to be complicated is the kernel drivers. So
Yeah, exactly. Right.
so it needn't be done as a part of GSOC. I'm just saying it's a very interesting idea. I think I'd like to do something like that.
Yeah.
because it seems interesting to. It's also easier to debug. I can just write port 0 dot send, and I can actually write a few integers to show that okay, my Botspeak code reached point A, point B, point C. So even if I'm developing new Botspeak features, I can actually see till where my code has executed and what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
So
That'd be good for
all I
debug.
have to do is read it back and see up till what point I can just start sending integers at different points and just see till where it is reached. So
Hmm. Speaking of debugging, another thing you could add that probably wouldn't be too much work is just add another sysfs entry of error code, and so if the interpreter does crash, it could write an error code to uh, that you could let the kernel driver report an error code.
I don't think as of now the interpreter crashes due to any reason. Especially after I add the array size checking, I doubt it'll leave much area to crash the interpreter itself. But you can, I can definitely add error messages for in case there's a bad instruction or something. But at the same time, I can send it back via uh, a return value.
Yeah. You see this guy?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Oh, your video just went away.
My video?
Good for me.
Oh. I don't know. Yeah. That's everything I have to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So I'll.
run on to another call too. So
Okay. So fine. I'll just continue until yeah, just figure out what to do this week and well, up till let's say in the next 9 days until August. So Alexander, are you free for a few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So as of now, well, the things I have to do is handle array sizes, then have a possible delete instruction, then what else? Yeah, you wanted the handle of global pins. Um, so that's one thing, as in the LEDs on the board. Then PWM analog in. Then the web interface. So yeah, there are kind of like lots of tiny things to do, which I'm hoping shouldn't take too much of time. I hope so. I'm not sure how long it'll take for the web interface because I've never done such a sort of thing. So uh, PyBBI has a web interface, right?
Yeah. I guess you could
Mm,
use that. It's got a little text input box. So you
you
could
know,
send
it,
command.
it 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 might make sense for me to just help you out with the web interface. There was already a web interface for Botspeak. What you really want to do is repurpose that thing.
oh, could you give me the link? How come okay, I haven't seen this before. So yeah, the web interface shouldn't be too much of a problem. I, I just want to get a basic web page running. Maybe we'll have parallel terminals or hmm, it shouldn't be too hard. I can just send the request, run a simple HTTP server in Python, which is inbuilt. Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about the user interface. I'm not really good with that.
Well, I mean, if you're implementing the web interface from scratch, then the first step would be to do like a RESTful API where you basically have um, a path for each one of those methods in your Botspeak or your the PRU object.
Hmm,
Um,
okay, I got this.
Yeah.
I thought I had commits for this for my standalone version. Oh, I know where I put them. They didn't go in here. Because I think this belongs in Bone 101.
Oh yeah, look at all that.
Huh. Chrome extension. Yeah, yeah, I think I can. Huh. Okay, I don't need to develop a web interface. I'll just make it compatible with this, what I already have. Is that fine, Jason?
I didn't make it compatible with what?
Uh, I think this particular the Chrome extension, it sends it via TCP port. So I already have a TCP port interface, so I think I can just get it to work with this. Shouldn't be a problem.
Well, I mean that's gonna take some effort. It's not just free, but I mean you can just try it, but I don't think it's just free.
No, all this needs is a TCP server, the way I see it.
Well,
So
that's what Botspeak.js is. That's a Node.js server, right? Or is this the actual? I don't know how Chrome extensions work.
no,
Yeah.
that's a Chrome
It
extension.
would be.
So
Yeah, I did the
the
same thing. It's a Chrome extension, but I did the same thing without a Chrome extension because we have the web server on there, and we should have the ability to do communication from um, our web server. We shouldn't need to go and install this Chrome extension. The Chrome extension is there so you can get TCP or serial access from your computer, but we shouldn't need to do that because our target device should be able to serve up the web page and do the communication for us.
yeah, that's right.
And so I did an example of that. I sent you the link just now. I guess I left it in the attic. I need to clean this up, but people were getting confused by all the extra information inside Bone 101.
Hmm.
So I put it off in the in an attic and was going to start manually pulling things in. But if you see that index, that's the web page, and
Oh,
I've created this um, this Botspeak script that essentially it's a fork of the Chrome extension, um,
okay.
but I've modified it to use the BoneScript implementation of Botspeak.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll have a look at it once I'm done with the array size handling and okay, array size labels. Yeah, yeah. I
Where
think
I was trying to
I'll.
go is if you make sure that your terminal stuff is just really clean, maybe it's easier for me to just add this to Bone 101 and help you update your latest Bone 101 to use it, and you can test with that. I
Yeah,
don't.
I think.
You can send me pull requests for Bone 101 too, but I don't want you to get stuck in a lot of time with something that you're not very familiar with.
Yeah, I'm familiar with simple pages. I worked a decent bit with JavaScript. Not much with jQuery or any front end elements. Like I made simple pages, but yeah, that's definitely not gonna cut it.
Yeah. Well, just
So I
realize
think.
you can drop these pages in with the in that varlib cloud9 directory that shows up, with the cloud9 IDE. You can just drop HTML pages in there, and they show up in that the beaglebone.local. And I think that that's probably a
Oh,
better
okay.
approach to take than to do the Chrome extension.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Finally that was the idea, to have a simple HTTP web server to serve up web pages. So it's just
So
that yeah,
this would mean.
I definitely could use some help on that.
Yeah. So this would mean focusing on your Botspeak terminal because that would be interfacing to that, as opposed to, if you implemented it in Python, then you'd be interfacing to the actual class instance, which is good because that's your user-facing thing anyway. So work on the interpreter or the terminal.
Yeah, because it's gonna be pretty easy for me to make a socket I/O connection between this terminal and your, if you're opening up like a TCP connection or something. So you focus on that side. Don't get too hung up on this side.
Yeah, fine. I'll give a nice enough terminal, and we'll see what we can build over that. Because if I start doing HTML stuff, I can easily while away a week trying to accomplish something I can't.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'll start off. My latest push has a tiny bug. So I'll fix that, and I'll handle the array size. Then I guess I can start building. I'll just um, write a tiny doc on how to use the TCP terminal, and from there I guess you can prototype something in a few hours and test it out. Though I was also concerned with error message handling, because there are at least 4 or 5 ways in which you can mess up a script, and for example, you're not allowed to run wait as a single command. It has to be part of a script. So stuff like that. Um, and you can't keep redeclaring an array as a part of a script, and certain things can run only in scripts, and a few commands cannot run outside script. So I handled such stuff, and in case they do try, it would be an error. As of now, it just returns that there's something wrong with it, but doesn't exactly tell you what's wrong. So it could be a syntax error, it could be a semantic error, it could be a integer overflow if you try to assign more than 16 bits at once. So
just be careful if
yeah.
you're using
So
exceptions. You don't want to kill your terminal program.
no, everything's in it. The loop has a try block inside, so
Yeah.
so that's not a problem. Oh, and another thing, yeah, as of now, what I'm doing is I'm using ply, right? Python lexicon for the parser, the compiler part. The problem it's giving me is ply itself put to the screen, which I don't want. So it says initializing ply, generating LELR tables, etc., etc. So I was wondering if there's any way to redirect plies, whatever prints, and to some other log file or something.
That would depend. I mean, you can redirect standard I/O and standard error.
But I don't want to redirect whatever I'm going to print on the terminal.
Yeah.
So right now, there's no TCP server client, so you just run a terminal application which it's basically a single program. So I don't want stuff which is supposed to be being printed on the screen.
Well, wait. If you're
It won't matter on a TCP client server, but
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you looked at the API docs for PLY?
yeah, but
There's nothing.
this. No, I think, yeah, I remember there's something to be with suppressing error warnings, but I don't know whether it takes care of everything, because other than error warnings, I had other stuff like oh, I don't remember, but it doesn't solve everything. That much I'm certain of. So there should be a standard way of redirecting unwanted input.
Well,
One way is to. Um,
sorry.
I wonder whether all those error messages are being printed to standard error, and that's one way of handling it.
Well, yeah, but you still
There should
want.
be some way to.
You can you can't change it like by per module, but what you could do is create a file like object that you redirect all the standard out and standard error through, so you can do some filtering. But that's kind of ugly.
Well, that's not a concern right now because it won't be a part of the final thing, because the I don't care what get printed on the TCP server side because the client isn't really going to see that anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah. So even now, GoTo is working with 64-bit instructions. For example, if you have, say, your first instruction was 32-bit, your second instruction was 64, and your third instruction is again a 32-bit instruction, and you have to go to the third instruction. So normally it's the 0th, first, and second. So now if I write I want to go to the second instruction, which follows after the 64-bit, it actually converts it into a 3 internally. So remember, Jason, I guess this is what you were telling me.
No, I'm distracted
So
at this
what it
point.
does is, okay. We'll discuss that later then. So what it does is it counts the number of. So if I want the fourth instruction, it actually sees whether all the 4 instructions are 32 bits before it, and it lets it. It remains as 4. Otherwise, if say there were two 64-bit instructions before the fourth instruction, then it adds 2 and converts it into 6 because it's the 6th position, even though it's the 4th instruction.
So are you doing that in the tokenizer? That calculation.
Yeah, the parsing unit. Well,
So
parser
then,
basically.
does it? There's also the case of go to forward, which then, if you're just going, if you're parsing one time linearly through, then the going forward is going to be a problem there.
Yeah, going forward is a problem, and go to with variables are a problem.
Yeah, so that could maybe be resolved in the PRU by looking at each instruction.
Nah, that's too slow. So I was thinking of
So,
having the first I was thinking of having the first location in the script being a series of zeros and ones. So that will still handle just 32 instructions max. So allocate 4 bytes. Now you can have zeros and ones to indicate that uh, the instruction is either 32-bit or 64-bit. So for example, let's say the first instruction was 32-bit, second was 64, third was 32 again. So it'll be 0, 1, 0, and so on. So it'll know how many 64-bit instructions occur before the instruction I want to jump to, and you can add that count.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
that
can be
works.
handled that way. Even forward instructions can be handled that way.
You can pull that right into program memory as well as you're going. So it's only a one-time DDR or DMA
So
read.
So yeah. But I wonder what will happen to all this once we go into GIT mode, because there should be better ways to handle it. So one option I was thinking of was labels with a 2-pass assembler.
I don't think you need labels if you can support go to variable. Oh wait, no, sorry. This was something I was thinking of. If you could do go to variable and then there was um, a command to get the current instruction number, you could do that, because then you'd only need single. I guess maybe labels would make more sense.
Yeah, because if your program crosses like 32 lines, I think labels are much better.
Though, if you can do goto variable and have a command for current instruction number, you could then implement functions by you could set the global return variable to the current instruction number, +1, and then go to some, named location. It would run and then go back to that return number. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, but do we really need functions? It's not even a part of the original
No,
Botspeak
I'm just
instruction.
overthinking it. It'd be cool, but not necessary.
Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking of labels. Go to with forward jumps definitely require some sort of
Yeah, I mean, I think that
no, actually,
that solution you said would be fine. Because yeah, memory access seems like it's one of the big causes of latency in the PRU.
yeah. Hmm. So as of now, I'm going to keep go to with constant and back jumps, as in going back, uh, because this two pass thing, I just want to give it a thought on how I can make it cleaner, whether it would make sense to put it in the PRU, because if I add the logic in the PRU, it's going to make it even more slower. But on the bright side, GoTo is one of the shortest, as in takes much less time compared to ifs and stuff. But if we have a
I don't think
yeah
that's going to
GoTo
be
combined,
slower. Um,
that's about yeah
I mean,
yeah
if you can, if you only need to, so if you do that, a bit for each instruction, um, then you only need to pull that out one time, um, and then it's no time at all to just look at the bits um, and
yeah but
count up.
yeah but you'd have to go through each bit and
Yeah, that's
yeah
not a problem. You're running you have a 200 megahertz clock. I don't think looking through bits is in a few bytes is not going to be a problem.
yeah well I guess that should
Yeah, no. If you left it in
be fine.
the shared memory and went, a read to the shared memory for each bit as you went, that would be slow. But if you pull that whole
No,
thing
no,
out,
since these are only like probably 3 or 4 integers max, because let's say
yeah,
32 36 128 instructions yeah. The thing is, it's for every 32 bit instructions, it's there should be a better way to handle all this, because s- it's not definitely not a clean option. You'd have forward go tos which still can't be compiled. So as of now, I'm seeing how many 64-bit instructions have been already compiled. It's being done on the ARM side. So my Python script just sees how many 64-bit instructions have been executed. It adds uh, that many instructions. I mean, it adds that much to the value of go val. It adds that much to val, as far as val is a constant. So if there are 364-bit instructions before the instructions you want to jump to, it adds 3. So
yeah.
one,
So,
yeah, that would become
so why not
yeah
just
that
completely ignore go-to on the first pass through? I guess that is the simplest. Um, and then go a second pass and fill in the go-tos.
yeah. I was thinking of having the first pass in not as a part of the parser, but as a part of PRU.py. That is the front end. So while it's buffering all the code, the script code, you're not going to use it anyway until you click run. So it can, as and when it gets the instructions while buffering, it can have some kind of, it can store some kind of a state in an object, and that state object can be later used by the actual compiler when you want to compile and run it. So that seemed like a very clean interface to me. So
Um,
as and when you're buffering it, the first pass is being done.
oh, huh. Wait, hold on a second. I'll be right.
This is awkward. Quite awkward.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So where were we? Yeah. So as of now, the front end API buffers the script we're giving it, and when you have run, it actually loads and asks the PRU to execute the script. So what I can do is I can have some sort of a state object which can store where the label are, how many bit instructions are there, etc., etc. And later on, um, we can while you actually want to run the code, so it can compile it, give it to the compiler, and along with it can give it the state object, so it'll know where the forward jumps are and how many instructions you have to jump. So that's one way to tackle it. So you can have labels, you can have go tos
Yeah, I don't.
with forward jumps.
Now that I think about it more, I think that that's. I think that just the two pass parsing is the way to go. Just completely
Yeah,
ignore go to.
that is
Well, I mean, two
yeah,
passes
that
right
is
in. Yeah, but why offload any of that to the PRU? It shouldn't have to think about it at all. All the go-tos should be absolute instruction addresses.
yeah. So
Well,
but
the question
yeah,
is
so that
go-to always a 32-bit command itself, or a 32-bit
um
instruction?
go to is, yeah, a 32-bit instruction.
Even if you say go-to array index by
Yeah,
variable.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then just do one pass completely ignoring go-tos, and then you know exactly how long every instruction is. You have your numbers for each instruction. Um, just adding that 30, that offset for the 64 bits, and then you can find your absolute go-to numbers on the second pass.
Well, my idea was similar. It was also a two-pass assembly, except in my first pass, I just handle what are the instruction sizes and where are the labels in case I'm handling labels. And in the second, so that state is stored, and finally the compiler can compile as normal, because if I want to compile all the instructions other than goto, I'll have to tweak the compiler code a bit, which is quite huge. That's 800 lines of Python code, so that's already terribly huge. So I thought it would be much easier to just go through the gotos first and then the rest of the code. So finally, when you're actually coming to the go-tos, or rather not even look at the go-tos, the main problem I have with forward jumps is I don't know how many instructions to skip by, because that could be a 64-bit instruction. So initially all I have to do is some pre-processing which counts how much size each instruction is going to take, which is quite simple to get. And the next thing I have to do is yeah, in case of labels, I have to keep track of which instruction the label points to. So that's as simple as that. After that, the compiler can function as normal. So if it's a forward go to.
Well, wait. What do you get when you compile it, or when you run it through like PLY? You get an array of uh, like numbers.
Yeah, I basically get encoded, binary encoded
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, in theory,
byte.
you could do it just assuming that every instruction is, you know, 32 bits basically is one instruction length,
Yeah,
and
the
just run
second
the
pass
whole
is the problem.
through, and then you could look through and just adjust those go-to values. I think that might be the easiest.
Then yeah, but then I'd need something that can read the bytecode, interpret the bytecode. Yeah, actually that shouldn't be
Yeah,
too hard.
just looks for go-tos because it can just run
Yeah,
through and count.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
using,
All it,
you
yeah,
can see
yeah,
how
yeah,
long it is. It'll know if it's 32 or 64 bits. So then it can
yeah.
make basically the mapping that way.
Yeah, all it has to check is, y- yep. But I had to make a bytecode reader then, or a bytecode interpreter, even on the user side. But actually,
Only
all I
looking
have
for
to do
one
is,
bytecode.
yeah, I'm only looking for one opcode, which is goto, or
That's no
if,
problem.
even if, yeah. So yeah, I think that should be possible too. Both seem equally easy to me. So yeah, I'll just see. But that still doesn't tell me how to handle goto with variables. Though I doubt it be utterly
You're
useful.
right. Right. That's true. It's up to the PRU, isn't it? Yeah, that's gonna
Yeah,
take some.
as far as gotos go, I think I'd be more comfortable with as in, for example, if I was asked to add a feature to goto, I'd say labels would be a better feature than adding array indexed variables or something like that. Because how frequently would you jump to a location, especially when you have no functions, it's one single script. Why would you ever index with array variable, a variable indexed array or something like that? So I think constants will do fine for 99% of the instructions, and labels is a really good add-on because you don't have to sit and count the number of instructions in your Botspeak code, especially if you're going to say line number up to 50 or 55 lines of code in Botspeak. And it also adds a bit more sense. For example, you can actually name what that loop is and stuff like that. So you
Yeah.
can actually have a better idea of what that loop is going to do. I think labels is a better add-on rather than worrying too much about how to handle variables as of now.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, so that should be done. The thing I'm worried about is all this language features are taking longer than actually implementing the PWM or analog in libraries, though I haven't tried them right now. And these are like minute details, so I
Yeah.
think I'll just go for digital in first and then come back to these things in another 2 days.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Because
most of the
as of now,
things we talked about today can be put off and should be put off until you get because you still need all those core opcodes and
yeah,
things.
yeah. So yeah, PWM, analog, and yeah. The PWM is also going to be a bit tricky, so I don't want to spend too much time on getting like tiny features correct. Or at the
Yeah.
end of the day, yeah, irrespective of how good the language is, you need more features than digital in and out, and maybe what are the basic things you need to control robots? Digital in, digital out, analog in, and PWM, right?
Uh, yeah. And what is? I mean, what else does Botspeak have? It has like a tone thing. Is that right? Um,
No, tone is not there yet. Chris wanted to introduce it
okay. What
this
are
time
the?
around.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that it?
Yeah, maybe a UART.
I wouldn't worry about that um, for a while, just because that's complicated, especially if you want to receive, unless you're actually using the UART modules. But then, there's more driver conflicts. Um,
Mm.
but
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
bit bang a UART, it can get really terrible.
yeah. Because one PRU is already handling PWM and most probably analog in, so I don't want to. I don't think they'll be capable of bit banging anything. Mm.
Oh, oh, that's already an instruction. Yeah, in BotSpeak, LBL. Store the current script line into the variable. Yeah, so LBLX puts the current script line in X. So it is. So he implemented labels with variables that way. So yeah, you want to do it the same way.
S- So LBLX, then go to X. Or
Yeah.
wait,
So
yeah.
it's actually allocating a variable and sticking it in there.
I I thought there was, I'm quite sure there were also labels somewhere mentioned. Now the thing is, the Botspeak resources are a bit distributed. Like there's some on the Google Code website and some on the botspeak.org.
Yeah,
Then
Chris has a Google
there's
code
some instruction.
updated.
Yeah, I think he's been modifying it over time, and there's also some on the r- the Raspberry Pi BrickPy library for Botspeak.
Right.
So yeah, I've been seeing 3 or 4 resources, and then the instructions and stuff vary quite a bit. So I think it's better to have a separate label instruction, because otherwise then I'd again have to handle goto with variables, and it's going to be a pain.
Yeah, but you don't want to change core language definitions if you can help it, you know.
Yeah, but I really wonder how Chris handles various instruction sizes, because uh, I think all this works for Botspeak, because for example, think of it on the Raspberry Pi. It's extremely simple. All it has to run is on user space Python, and the main libraries are done in like about 300 to 500 lines.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
whereas if you're doing it in time,
Botspeak
yeah,
itself, the full language
I
isn't
think
perfect, right? I mean, it's actually like this. It reads the strings, I believe. It's not tokenized at all.
yeah, one sec. No, I do remember one sec. Botspeak.org. God, terrible internet. One second. Language, tiny speak.
Yeah, TinySpeak does have variable length commands.
Yeah, so I'm wondering how he's handled all the things.
Well, but he's
I'm quite
also
sure
got
there was labels.
his virtual machine is implemented in something like Arduino, where you have more high level data structures to handle that sort of thing. So you can actually have each instruction, no matter its length, be an index in an array or something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember seeing a label sort of instruction, not LBL. I just can't remember where. There was an explicit label somewhere.
I don't know.
Label this up, blah 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 blah. Hmm. Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure how Chris handles this.
Looks like LBL is not implemented in TinySpeak or any
Yeah,
label.
probably not.
I would
Uh,
think more about how to do LBL as it is in Botspeak. Because, yeah, preserving the language design is a good thing.
yeah, I'll note that down too. I'll discuss this further on IRC. I have to leave right now. It's been a
Yeah,
while
yes.
been talking, so I think I have to leave dinner time. So
Okay,
okay, I'll catch up with you in some time on IRC. Okay.
yep. All right.
So, sure. Yeah.
See
Okay.
ya.
Bye.